The price of desire. What would you do if, in your darkest hour, the very life you built from sacrifice and deception came crashing down around you? For Naya, a young woman who once dared to dream of a brighter future, this question wasn't hypothetical. It was the bitter reality that gripped her as she found herself trapped in a cold, sterile police cell, every second ticking toward an uncertain fate. The life of luxury she had so carefully orchestrated through whispers of lies and the thrill of stolen treasures now seemed nothing but a fading illusion. But as she sat there, wrestling with the consequences of her choices, a shadow approached, a man whose face she could barely make out but whose cold, assessing gaze made her heart race. Would this be her moment of reckoning, or the start of something even darker?
Like and subscribe.
The city sparkled with endless promises and fleeting dreams. For Naya, each light symbolized something she'd once hoped to achieve. She had come to the city as a young university student with ambitions, but the reality of survival soon stole her dreams. By her second year, she was forced to drop out due to lack of funds, and the life she'd carefully planned began to unravel. Naya was in her dorm room, poring over her textbooks when she got the call. Her mother's voice cracked as she explained that their family's farm had suffered, their income barely enough to cover essentials, let alone her tuition fees. Naya's dreams of becoming a successful professional and providing for her family were shattered in that single phone call. "Please, my daughter," her mother had pleaded, "you can still make an honest life in the city. Find a decent job, stay out of trouble. I don't want to lose you to bad company." Naya had promised her mother she would try, but as the bills piled up and her prospects dwindled, she found herself in a desperate situation. She moved out of the dorms and into a cramped apartment with a few other young women who had also abandoned their dreams for the city. Desperate to find a legitimate job, Naya spent hours scouring online job boards and local listings. She donned her best outfit, a simple but neat dress, and stepped out into the city, ready to apply for anything that would help her regain a sense of stability. Her first stop was a trendy cafe, where she was greeted by a manager who seemed impressed with her enthusiasm. But as he reviewed her resume, his expression changed. "Look, I appreciate your spirit, but we're really looking for someone with more experience. Have you ever worked in the food industry?" Naya's heart sank. "No, but I'm a fast learner. I can do anything you need." He shook his head apologetically. "I'm sorry. We can't take the risk right now." Feeling defeated, she left the cafe and wandered to a nearby clothing store, hoping the retail environment would welcome her. After filling out an application and waiting for what felt like hours, she was called in for an interview. The manager was friendly but direct. "I'm impressed with your style, Naya, but honestly, we need someone who can work nights and weekends. The pay is decent, but we do expect a certain commitment." "What do you mean by commitment?" Naya asked, a knot forming in her stomach. The manager leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Sometimes our best sales associates need to entertain our VIP customers. It's not mandatory, but it helps you earn extra tips." Naya's heart raced as she processed the implication. "You mean I'd have to—" "Just think about it," the manager interrupted, a knowing smile on her face. "If you're serious about making money, it could be worth it." Feeling disgusted, Naya politely declined and stepped back into the street, overwhelmed by the reality of what she was facing. As she continued her search, the few job offers she received were either for positions she couldn't stomach or ones that would pay her much less than she needed to survive. Disheartened, she met her friends at a local bar, seeking solace in their company. As they sipped drinks and shared their frustrations, one of her friends, Laura, leaned in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Why don't you just join us?" she suggested, lowering her voice as if to keep the conversation private. "You've seen how well it's worked for us." Naya looked at her friends, their faces illuminated by the dim bar lights, a mixture of excitement and encouragement in their eyes. "You mean escorting?" she asked hesitantly. "Why not? It's easy money, and you're already in the game." "You just have to be smart about it," Laura urged. "Think about the cash you could make. You won't have to worry about jobs that demand too much." But what about the risks? Naya countered, unease creeping into her voice. What if something goes wrong? Please, we know what we're doing. Just take a chance, Laura said, and the others nodded in agreement. We've got your back. You'll see, it's all about knowing how to play the game. Naya felt torn, but she decided to give it a trial. They introduced her to the world of escorting and taking advantage of wealthy, unwitting clients. What started as a last resort became a lifestyle. One night, Naya's friends set her up with a client who was known to be careless with his wallet. They coached her on how to act, what to say, and how to move without arousing suspicion. Her heart pounded as she met him, a businessman with a penchant for flashing his wealth. Naya played the part, laughing at his jokes, leaning close to him as if he were the most fascinating person in the world. The thrill of slipping his wallet into her purse was intoxicating. By the time she left, she felt both fear and exhilaration coursing through her. She returned to her apartment with a stack of cash and stories to share with her roommates, who cheered and toasted to her success. That night, Naya felt invincible. From that point on, she dove deeper into the life, each heist more daring than the last. With every job, she celebrated with her friends, laughing and sharing stories late into the night. But as her success grew, so did the tension among them. Her friends began to envy her knack for getting the wealthiest clients and making the biggest scores. One evening, Naya returned from a heist with a sleek gold bracelet and a thick wad of cash. She proudly displayed her latest haul, laughing as she recounted how she'd fooled her client. Her friends looked on, their faces a mix of admiration and envy. They cheered, but she couldn't ignore the undertone of resentment in their voices. "That's, like, the fourth time this week," one of her friends, Laura, said, forcing a smile. "You're on fire, girl." "Maybe she's just got better clients," another friend muttered under her breath, but Naya caught the edge in her tone. The celebrations became more tense, the laughter hollow. As Naya's successes mounted, the friendships that had once been her lifeline began to crack, fissures forming in the bonds she'd thought unbreakable. At first, it was subtle, a missed invitation here, a whispered conversation there. But soon, the signs were harder to ignore. Some nights, her friends would leave her out of their plans altogether, choosing instead to gather without her, the laughter and chatter from their outings visible only through filtered photos she stumbled upon online. It stung, but she tried to brush it off, convincing herself they were just busy or preoccupied. Yet, the atmosphere had changed. Whenever she entered the room, conversations went quiet, and awkward glances darted between them. She could feel the weight of unspoken words, the tension thickening with each passing day. The jealousy simmered, a slow burn in the background, waiting for the right moment to spill over. Naya was left wondering when, or if, it would finally erupt, and what it would cost her if it did. Despite the growing tension, Naya ignored the warning signs. The money was too good, and the thrill too addictive. Her friend's envy was a small price to pay. She landed a new client. Naya stood outside the hotel room door, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. She was confident in her ability to make a clean sweep of things, just as she had so many times before. Tonight's client was a wealthy businessman, one who had practically flaunted his riches when they met at a high-end bar the night before. He was captivated by her beauty, which meant he was likely to be easy prey. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door and was greeted by the man, whose eager grin told her all she needed to know. They exchanged pleasantries, and soon he poured her a glass of expensive champagne. They chatted briefly, and Naya noted every valuable item in the room. A designer wristwatch rested on the nightstand, his wallet poked out from his jacket draped over a chair, and a sleek, expensive tablet was charging by the bed. As he stepped into the bathroom to freshen up, she seized her opportunity. She moved quickly, slipping the watch and the tablet into her bag. The wallet, however, was trickier. It was thick, practically stuffed with cash and cards, and made a faint but noticeable bulge in her small bag. She had just closed her bag when she heard the bathroom door creak open. Heart hammering, She threw herself onto the bed and smiled as if she hadn't just been pilfering his belongings. But something in his gaze shifted as he looked at her. His brow furrowed. "Hey, where's my watch?" he asked, looking at the nightstand with a suspicious glance. "Oh, your watch." Naya feigned innocence, stretching lazily. "Didn't you leave it in the bathroom?" The man's eyes narrowed. He didn't reply, but he moved to check his jacket next, fumbling through it before he turned to look at her. Naya felt her pulse quicken. His expression hardened as he started toward her, his voice thick with accusation. "Did you touch my things?" Before she could answer, he lunged for her bag, his fingers brushing the edge. She jerked it back, laughing casually but feeling the cold sweat bead along her spine. "You think I'd come all the way here just to rob you?" she said, her voice tinged with mock offense. "Relax. You must have misplaced it." His face twisted, but after a long, uncomfortable pause, he seemed to relax a little, giving her a suspicious nod before turning away to check the bathroom once more. She used the moment to grab her coat and excuse herself hurriedly, leaving before he could think to look again. Outside the hotel, Naya released a long, trembling breath, realizing just how close she'd come to getting caught. It wasn't long after her close call at the hotel that her luck finally ran out. A few nights later, another client, Andrian, realized too late that his money, watch, and phone were missing, but he was determined to track her down. He hired a private investigator, who managed to trace her movements and alerted the police. When she was picked up, she was in a different hotel, waiting for her next job. Her arrest was swift and humiliating. In the police station, Naya sat in a dimly lit cell, her hands cuffed behind her back, her face in her hands as she tried to process her situation. The stark reality of her choices hit her in waves, and for the first time, fear overcame her pride. She was no longer just playing a game, she was facing real consequences. Her friends, once so supportive and celebratory, had abandoned her. She was alone. Just when she thought she was entirely lost, she heard footsteps outside her cell. Looking up, she saw a man she hadn't expected, Adrian, a former acquaintance she had also stolen from some time ago. He looked furious, his jaw clenched, his gaze piercing. Immediately, fear gripped her. "Another testimony, deeper problem," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. She clenched her hands tightly, feeling a cold sweat break out on her brow. "Adrian," she stammered, unsure if this was real or just a cruel illusion. He crossed his arms, his voice cold. "Do you know how disappointed I am? I knew it that one day you would be arrested and made to pay for all that you have stolen from people." Naya could barely meet his gaze, but Adrian's next words surprised her. "I'm getting you out," he said. "But there are going to be conditions." Her heart leapt, even as confusion clouded her mind. Why would he help her after all she'd done? But in that moment, she was willing to accept any terms just to escape the nightmare she'd put herself in. When Adrian brought Naya to his house, he was clear on the arrangement. She was to work as his housekeeper, under strict watch, until he decided she had proven herself trustworthy. Her room was small and plain, a stark contrast to the lavish rooms she'd grown accustomed to through her past clients. Every day, she would cook, clean, and run errands, and every day she would see Adrian's cold, judgmental stare, a constant reminder of the choices that led her here. The work was exhausting, and the humiliation even more so. The girl who had once flaunted her beauty and confidence now scrubbed floors and washed dishes, each task making her acutely aware of the depth of her fall. She obeyed Adrian's instructions without complaint, knowing that every hour spent in servitude was a form of penance. After weeks of this, Adrian began noticing small changes in her. She no longer complained, and she worked with a quiet diligence that he hadn't expected. There were nights when he would catch her sitting by the window, staring at the city lights, a sad, lost look on her face. Despite his anger, he found himself feeling something else, an odd sense of empathy. One evening, after she had finished all her tasks, Naya approached Adrian, her hands clasped tightly together. "Adrian," she said, her voice soft and hesitant, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but please, I don't want to go back to that life. I don't want to be that person anymore. Let me stay here. I'll work any job, take any pay, just, please don't send me away. Adrian's face softened. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, the vulnerability that she rarely showed. A part of him wanted to believe she was capable of change, that she could rebuild her life on a path of honesty and hard work. "All right," he said finally, his voice gentler than it had been in weeks. "You can stay, but you'll start from the bottom. I'll give you a chance to prove yourself." Relief washed over her, and for the first time, she managed a small, grateful smile. Days turned into weeks, and Naya proved herself to be hardworking and diligent. Adrian, despite himself, found his initial anger fading, replaced by a quiet admiration for her resilience. She worked tirelessly, never asking for anything, never complaining. And as they spent time together, Adrian began to see a different side of her, a side that was kind, thoughtful, and vulnerable. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Adrian looked at her with a newfound respect. "You've come a long way, Naya," he said softly. "I didn't expect this from you." Naya looked down, her cheeks tinged with embarrassment. "I just want a chance to be someone better, someone worth respecting." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, Adrian felt his walls begin to crack. Against his better judgment, he found himself drawn to her, captivated by her determination to rebuild her life from the ashes of her past. Over the weeks, that bond grew stronger, and what began as an act of pity and duty turned into something more. Adrian couldn't deny it any longer. He was falling for her. And for Naya, this new life, this new bond, was a chance to finally find the redemption she'd sought. With Adrian's guidance and support, Naya began taking classes again, slowly rebuilding her confidence and skills. Her past no longer haunted her, and she embraced her new life with a humility and gratitude that she had never known before. Together, she and Adrian forged a future built not on wealth or appearances, but on understanding, growth, and a love born from redemption. Thank you for watching. If you found this story captivating, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chukwudi Alaulor Studio. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What part of this story spoke to you the most? Let us know.